Hi everyone, summer berries are back in season, and since I found raspberries on sale at the supermarket, I thought I'd share one of my favorite recipes for raspberry scones. Now, this is a recipe I found on Pinterest years ago, and I've made it so many times, substituting all different kinds of fruit, and it works with everything, so I hope that you like it. Here's what you're going to need. 2½ cups of flour, 2½ teaspoons baking powder, half a teaspoon salt, half a cup sugar, 2/3 cup butter, and you're going to want this chilled, 8 to 10 tablespoons of milk. Basically, that's a little more than half a cup, but not quite 3/4, so right around there. Vanilla, you'll need 2 teaspoons. You'll need 1 cup of fruit, and again, I'm using fresh raspberries, but you can use blueberries, you can use apricots, you can use anything, and you can even try frozen as well, but of course, fresh is always best. And then the recipe calls for coarse sugar just for the topping. I don't have any, but I always just use regular sugar and it works just fine. And then you're going to want to keep your flour handy because you're going to need some more of that as well. So let's get started. We're going to get a large mixing bowl. You see that I already have the flour in here, and you're just going to add all your other dry ingredients. I'm just going to mix them together real quick. And then we're going to add in our chilled butter. And you see that I already have mine all cut up. I like doing that because it just kind of helps it a little more. Now at this point, if you have a blender with one of those pastry attachments, it works perfectly. I've got one here, but honestly, I prefer using a hand pastry blender. It's one of these. So again, you don't need the mixer. If you have one of these, it works great. But we're just going to break up that butter and get it to work into that flour mixture. This is what it should look like when you've got the butter all broken pretty evenly, you can see. Now I'm going to add the liquids. Basically just going to take the vanilla, add it to the milk, give it a quick stir, and then just add it into my flour mixture. Now we can start mixing again. At this point, you're probably going to want to switch to your hands to do some kneading. But I forgot to mention, we're supposed to, preheat the oven to 400 degrees. And actually right now is probably the perfect time because it does take a while to form the scones. And now's where it's going to start to get really messy, where you have to use your hands. So you want to make sure that your hands are clean. But we're going to add in the raspberries just a little at a time. And don't panic, because when you start mushing them in there, they get really messy. And you're going to reach a point where you think, oh my gosh, I really blew this. I made a big mess. But don't panic, because it's only going to get messier. Trying not to break too many of them, but it's unavoidable. Now we're going to take the flour and flour our surface. I'm just using my countertop. But you put plenty of flour on there. And by the way, my countertop is super clean right now. I think I've been disinfecting it constantly during the quarantine, so I'm not at all worried about it. I'm going to take the mixture that we have, and I'm going to split it in two. So I'm going to try to get roughly half of this, and that looks like it's about half. See that? And you're going to just form this disc, kind of like a round disc, and it's just messy. And again, like I said earlier, you're going to think that you're doing something wrong that it's not supposed to look like that, but it is. And so what we're doing is we're forming kind of a round little circle. You can pick up some of the flour with your fingertips. Like that. And I'm just gonna grab a knife now, and then I'm gonna cut my scones. And I'm just going to cut this kind of like a pizza. And I like to do it in sixths. You can do it however many you want to do. Then you pick them up. Just put them on your cookie sheet. Space them apart just a little. Again, the recipe calls for coarse sugar, which would make it look really beautiful, but regular sugar does the trick, and it tastes just as good. So you just put quite a bit on there. You kind of press it in with your fingers. We'll do the exact same thing with the other half. And these bake about 18 to 20 minutes. Second one. Oh, they look good. Let them cool. And I'll pick them up in a little bit. They smell so good. You know, I was reading this article in the LA Times that was talking about how people during the quarantine aren't just baking their own bread, they're actually churning their own butter. It said they were going full on Little House on the Prairie, which I thought was so funny, but honestly, I can kind of relate to a little bit of that. There's just something so gratifying about making things the old-fashioned way as opposed to buying them already made. And these raspberry scones are a perfect example of that. Now, I do want to give credit where credit is due, because I did mention earlier I got this recipe off of Pinterest, so I actually went back to find what the original source was, and it was bakingbites.com, so you may want to check them out. Anyway, I'm going to give these a try, and hopefully you'll make some at home and let me know what you think. Oh my God, they're wonderful. I don't want to talk with my mouth full, but I think you're going to love them.